every time I come anywhere near, anywhere in the borough, I think of your two MPs. And I think of what could have been, and I'm eternally disappointed that Liani didn't quite make it in defeating Wes Streeting. And every time I see privatisation in the NHS, I think of the importance of defeating people who are in Parliament solely to hand over our public services to the private sector. So let's go for it and make sure we don't have him next time. And your other MP, well, he does a good job speaking up for private landlords. What else can I say? My view, and I put this forward when I was developing Labour education policy, that I wanted to end Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 testing, change and remove the role of Ofsted altogether, to have instead a supportive inspection system, but also to encourage creativity within our schools and education by more access to music, art, theatre and all those other forms of education which do so much to develop children's imagination and actually make them better at science, maths and all the other subjects that's done. And then the other one, of course, is by the underfunding of schools, and again, schools are suffering because of PFI, the opportunities for school students to have after-school clubs and so on has reduced, if not disappeared, in many places, hence all the problems that come from young people being exposed to influences they shouldn't be exposed to in those crucial couple of hours after school each day. So it's up to us to mobilise people and make the demands of the kind of spending pattern and the kind of opportunities that could be achieved and the liberation that education could give. And when Bridget Phillipson came up last week with a statement on this, I asked a question about the history syllabus. She didn't like it, because I said, well, actually, the impressions of history have a massive effect on children. So primary school history teaching is actually quite important. It's got to be taught well, it's got to be taught carefully, it's got to be taught empathetically. But are we to teach children about some kind of European superiority around the world, that all scientific and literature and musical advances only ever came from Europe? Or are we to do what the best teachers do, which is encourage an understanding that knowledge, imagination, music, art, literature, poetry comes from everywhere. Every part of the world has made a contribution to our collective knowledge. So if we start from the principle, we want all our children to understand that we all learn something and develop something from learning all over the globe. That is much harder in later years for the racists to get past that when they're talking horrible stuff against migrants, refugees and people that have come from other parts of the world to make their homes in this country. So I think there's so many areas that we can make a huge difference. And that means challenging. It means challenging the economic narrative that we're fed, challenging austerity 2.0, and challenging the myth that the private sector can sort the problems out of health, of education, or anything else. Yourparty.uk has to be understanding of global issues as well. This morning I was at the Westminster Magistrates Court with a group of people from Liverpool, Merseysiders who had all been involved in a protest in Liverpool where they waved placards saying they supported Palestine action, and they were all under charge for under terrorism offences. Wow. And there's been over 1,000 people arrested on that, and the cases have been put back to next year. And as you know, there's another case coming up in the High Court where this whole thing is being challenged under a judicial review. But to me, it's symptomatic of something unpleasant about restricting our civil liberties, restricting our right to protest, and trying to silence people by various gagging orders and the like, linked to the digital ID system that's coming in. So I think we need to be organising local assemblies when people can understand and look at the importance of human rights, look at the importance of protecting those rights, and look at the importance of protecting them against the attacks that are coming. We have protested, I'm sure all of us, about the situation in Gaza. genocide against the Palestinian people by this Zionist project of the eternal expansion of Israel, the Greater Israel plan that Netanyahu is putting forward. It is a genocide, and having been in Gaza, the West Bank, and the refugee camps in the other countries, particularly Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, many times, I just feel personally unbelievably angry at the sights I see, of places I've been to, schools I've visited in Gaza, now just a pile of rubble. And there are 55 million tons of rubble in Gaza now. That would be, if it was in Britain, the equivalent of a ton of rubble for everybody living in England outside their house. That's the level of destruction that's gone on. How's it gone on? By Israeli bombardment. Where did those bombs come from? Mostly the USA, for sure. But quite a lot came from Britain. The components for the F-35 jets, 15% of them, came from Britain. The staging point, RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus, important part of it. The sharing of intelligence information and security information with Israel, very much part of it. So, recognizing Palestine, good. We all wanted that. But if we carry on supplying arms to the occupying power, carry on supplying arms to the aggressor, and that aggressor has been found wanting by the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court, does that not make us in the UK equally complicit in those acts of genocide and those war crimes that are going on in Palestine? And so it is up to us, I think, to speak out on these issues just as much as it's important to speak out to try and bring peace between Russia and Ukraine and end the destruction there. The UN seemed incapable of doing it. Probably it was the veto powers. It was only the late Pope Francis and President Lula and the African Union that made any real effort. There has to be an end to that conflict. I do not support the occupation by Russia. I do not support the continuation of the war. I want to see peace to save lives. I hate the idea of watching something like the First World War going on in Central Europe now for a third year. And so we have to be a voice for peace. We have to be a voice that will not spend all our money on arms and weapons and new generation of nuclear arms, but instead refigure and refund the overseas aid budget and support peace initiatives around the world, but recognize that the wars have a purpose. If you look at the war in Sudan, at one level, it looks like some crazy war between the government of Sudan and a rebel force that broke away from the army. And that's the way much of the media report it. Look at it another way. The amount of arms flowing into that force from United Arab Emirates, supplied by the USA, by Britain, by France, and others, and then you look at where the fighting is taking place, and then overlay that with a map of the untapped mineral resources of Sudan, and you see what is going on. It is yet another grab for African raw materials and African resources made by the armaments supplied by the West. These are things that we have to educate people and try to understand how we go forward. And so, I'm absolutely determined that yourparty.uk will have a good conference in the end of the month in Liverpool, that we will develop this idea of local organisation, local determination, and above all, bring people in every month so that whatever branch structure we set up, we have open public events every month, so we make ourselves accountable to be and part of our community. So we can do an awful lot. We can be the community force in communities. We can be the force defending tenants. We can be the force fighting planning issues and demanding social housing. But we can also be the force that brings people together for entertainment, music, and so much else. And so that's what your party is going to be, completely different to the other political parties that exist in our society, a locally based, locally determined determination that we live in a society with the socialist values that bring us together, being the things that guide us in what we do, in our policy making, in our campaigning, and our development. It won't always be easy. There'll be times People don't always agree on something, but keep on talking it through. We can agree on what the important things are in life.
I haven't left the Labour Party to create another Labour Party. So this party will not be Labour 2.0. We will not be mimicking party structures. We will not be settling for crumbs off capitalism's table. We are building a movement that fights for material change. We are not here to manage capitalism a bit more politely. We want to replace it, because the problem isn't just a few greedy companies or a few bad bosses. It is a system that puts profit before people, greed before humanity, and militarism before peace. And as long as this system stays in place, it will continuously reproduce ecological destruction, exploitation, and inequality. And the world that we want is where the economy serves society, not the other way around. When no one in our community goes hungry, no one sleeps rough, and no child grows up poor. That is the vision, and only socialism can deliver the foundation for universal equality, dignity, and freedom. That's what I want your party to be fighting for. And to be clear, socialism doesn't stop at our borders. We stand with the oppressed everywhere, from Sudan to Congo to Palestine. And if we fight for it, your party will be an anti-Zionist party, because you cannot be neutral on apartheid. You cannot normalize genocide. And Israel must be treated the same way South Africa was under apartheid, as a pariah state. So we will sever all diplomatic ties with a genocidal apartheid state. That means expelling the ambassador. That means shutting down the embassy. And we will stand with Palestinians until every inch of their land is free. A single democratic state, from the river to the sea, with equal rights for all. And I'm going to just run through some of my democratic demands that I'm hoping all of you have seen already online. And those demands include uniting the left. That means dual membership, people from the age of 14 being able to join, and having an international section and showing solidarity with people who live here. You shouldn't have to have the right to vote to be a member of our party. Anyone who lives here, anyone who works here should be able to join. We need social power in our communities. And for the longest time, I've only ever known party branches to be treated as call centres during elections. We want to empower our members. That means 50% of membership subs going to local branches so they can organise, and that also includes having access to membership data. And then there's the People's Whip, which means conference is supreme, it is binding, and anything that is passed becomes binding on councillors, MPs, all elected representatives, because that's how you address a democratic deficit. And future conferences must elect delegates from all member meetings. When it comes to Wales and Scotland, I don't know if there's any Welsh or Scottish comrades in the room. No. It's still important to mention that they will decide their relationship with your party, UK, and they will decide the policy on independence or further devolution. We will have an executive that represents members, not MPs. So when those elections come, and they must be held before the end of the year, all of the positions must be open to everyone. There cannot be reserved positions for MPs or councillors, because it's your party. It literally belongs to you. And only only members can decide who represents them. That means open selection. That means mandatory reselection. We are not here for those backroom deals or fiefdoms or coronations. The members decide who represents them, no one else. And that will be done through Scottish STV, which is regarded as the most democratic voting system. That's for candidate selections and all internal elections. We demand full accountability and transparency. That means independent oversight of the sortition process that is currently underway, as well as internal elections going forward. They also must be independently scrutinised and overseen. We must have an internal audit of finances, and the treasurer and general secretary of the party must be elected, not appointed, through one member, one vote. And then I'm coming towards the end, bear with me. So on the youth section, as someone who came through the student movement, young people aren't here to be treated like tokenistic figures that make photos and videos look interesting, and they might give us some tips on TikTok. Young people are the movement. They will lead the movement, and they have to be given their own youth section to organize themselves. With the regional assemblies that are taking place in the founding documents, all submissions to assemblies must be made public and accessible for everyone to see. Any amendments that receive 25% of support across assemblies must be voted on at conference. And finally, alternative leadership models must also be voted on. Members decide the structure, not MPs. So as well as sole leader, there could be a co-leader or a collective leadership that is decided at conference. So that's the end of my list, but at the heart of that is the fight for maximum member democracy. Everything that's happened over the past few months has literally been about member democracy and taking power away from MPs. And that fight is crucial because, like I said, it is your party. It literally belongs to you. Together, we can build a movement strong enough to challenge state power, a movement that can dismantle the rotten establishment, confront capitalism and imperialism head-on, and rebuild society from the ground up. Because we know real change has never come from above. It has always been won through struggle from below, whether that's women having the right to vote, whether that's our NHS, whether that's our workplace rights. People have fought for those in our communities. Power does not lie in Westminster. It is in our trade unions, it's in our tenants' unions, it's in the climate movement, and it's in the fight for Palestinian liberation. Over 800,000 people expressed an interest in the party that we're building. Those people haven't gone away. They're watching, they're waiting, they're ready to fight. What's more, public opinion is already with us, against war, against genocide, for renationalisation, for workers' rights, for properly funded services. What we have to do is build a united movement to bring those struggles together. Because united, we are strong. United, we will win. I call on everyone to join your party. I call on you to get active in your local communities, join a trade union, join a tenants union, organise around food poverty. Build the power that we all need to fight back. Because if you want change, if you want socialism, you bloody have to fight for it. They are not going to hand it to us. And the choice is clear. Just scroll on your phone or watch the news. It's between socialism or barbarism, and we must choose socialism every single time.
I was really pleased to be in Whitechapel a few weeks ago at a meeting in the Rich Mix to see Zara there, one of the speakers, building for what was a very successful, huge turnout from the East End of London, the Whitechapel Unity protest to stop the far right coming to Whitechapel. The police had to stop it. They had to stop it because they knew that we were organised and we would turn out in our community in unity against them. I was really pleased to see Jeremy Corbyn speaking on that platform there. Absolutely right that he was there, that Zara was there. The question is, should it be front, left and centre now for our organisation to build those protests? Like we wrote to every member for the Palestine protest, that was brilliant. We should be doing that for mobilisations locally and nationally for the far right. And should every representative of this organisation support those mobilisations? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't have access to the mailing list, so you'd have to ask the other 5 MPs why that mailing list wasn't used to support anti-fascist mobilisations, whether it's the Tommy Robinson one or the others that have happened across the country. I believe that we should be directing the 800,000 people who have joined the mailing list to all anti-fascist demonstrations that take place, as well as solidarity on picket lines, Palestine demonstrations, tenants evictions to show solidarity in action. And I believe that that's how we should be organising our members and our supporters. Anti-fascism has to be a key pillar of our work, and we as a party must be supporting the anti-fascist league that I mentioned, that work has already been done with trade unions and community groups, and I believe that we have to support it root and branch. We have to defeat the fascists, like I said, at the ballot box, but we have to be organising in our communities, and as well as delivering a political and economic message that it's not migrants that are driving your bills up, that it's not migrants who are evicting you out of your homes. It is a political system that puts profit over people, and we're here to provide material change to people's lives, and it has to be all of those things happening at the same time.
My name's Reagan. I'm from a group called Fight Racism, Fight Imperialism. I'm living in East London. I have a question for Zarah. What I really wanted was to ask a question for Jeremy Corbyn, but he has left has left our questions unanswered. But I think, it's very clear that what Zarah is saying is like night and day to what Jeremy has said earlier. And I guess I'm asking the question not only to Zarah, but to the people in the room. Are we going to recognize and be able to talk about these differences? Are we going to be able to, say that these things are fundamental differences within the party? And Zarah says rightly, it's socialism or barbarism. And, the barbarism is not always so apparent and in your face, especially in Britain. The barbarism hides and it's insidious, and we have to call it out where it is. And there's barbarism within your party as it's being established now. So the question is, what do we do about that? How do we fight that from within the party?
Thank you. I've answered a lot of Reagan's questions before at events and the RCG's questions, so I'm happy to do it one more time. I don't think framing this as this is Zara's point and this is Jeremy's point and what's the point of having a party where there's differences? I mean, I think that's the entire point of being able to debate those differences. Ultimately, we are not here to create a split, and I don't think some of those interventions are helpful because this is a party that hasn't even had its first conference yet where motions will be passed. And I always say that if you want a party that's anti-imperialist, if you want a party that's anti-Zionist, you have to pass the motions to kind of say, well, different people have different opinions, so what's the point? I think that is so reductive, and there's over 50,000 members of this party already. That's the largest socialist party since the 1940s, and my priority is making that number go higher. My priority is passing democracy and passing motions that I think everyone in this room agrees with, and as someone who's spoken to thousands of members already over the past few weeks, I believe that the majority of members will found a party that is anti-Zionist, anti-imperialist, socialist to the core, and that's what we have to be fighting for. If people aren't interested in fighting for that vision, that's fine, that's democracy, but I am, and I believe that the majority of the 50,000 people are too, and that's what we have to prioritize.
Hi Zara. I've just recently finished my A-levels, and yeah, thank you. And I actually did politics as well, so I wrote a lot about you in my arguments and stuff, so thank you for that. But yeah, I did, I got a star actually, so, but yeah, so I guess what I wanted to ask about is, I think there's been like a great push towards STEM and for students pursuing STEM subjects, and we've even seen it now recently. The University of Nottingham have cut, and this is alongside a lot of other universities, they've cut humanities and funding for the creative subjects. What I wanted to ask is, how do we support students across the country, working class students, students with SEN, that, the humanities are important to explore their creative ideas and push that forward more?
Thank you. More young people studying politics and getting into politics, please. I think at the heart of this is a marketized higher education system that saddles young people with tens of thousands of pounds of student debt. And so they think, if I'm going to have all of this debt, I must study a subject that's going to guarantee me a job. And that means we are losing so much talent out of art, out of humanities, out of all of these subjects that create musicians, filmmakers, all of the things that we all love about society. And so we have to have a higher education system that understands education is a public good that should be financed through general taxation, where young people, if they want to pursue education in universities, they should be able to do that. I went to Parliament and I took my student loan statement and I presented that to Boris Johnson, and I said, is it fair for working class kids to accrue and be saddled with so much debt when he went from the playing fields of Eton to a free education at Oxford? And it's the same politicians that reap the benefits of higher education, of housing, of getting these good jobs and pensions, and screwed the rest of us. And now you have young people with debt, insecure housing, poorly paid jobs, and a planet on fire. And so we have to fight for an alternative vision that gives young people hope. So they're not thinking about how much debt they're going to have. They're studying the subjects that make them happy, and we all benefit from that. So we have to address the higher education system that is based on profit, where universities are building empires and just making more and more cuts across the board. We need young people and, we need students and staff to be able to run their organisations, and if higher education was run in a democratic way, and that has to be done across the economy. So for young people, abolishing tuition fees, abolishing student debt, and letting them study whatever they like, especially politics, I think that would be great.
In Redbridge, we've got some grassroots movements. And you're all for grassroots movements. We've got Redbridge and Ilford Independence. Small local people getting together as independents and trying to make a real movement starting from grassroots. Would your party be supporting movements like Redbridge and Ilford Independence to clear out the Labour Party in 2026 and make a movement for people and represented by the people?
I want to thank all independent councillors, everyone who has left the Labour Party and is organising in our local communities. We've got Rosa Gomez here, who has been bullied by the Labour Party, who's an absolute legend and a fighter that we need. Thanks, Rosa. Can we keep clapping for a bit? And I've heard the stories from other independent councillors, when we've got people like Noor in the room who's run against Jazz Atwell. When Noor beats Jazz, that will send a message to the bullies that we are building a different movement that is about honesty, working class power and solidarity. So I see your party supporting candidates like Rosa, like Noor, like so many others that I imagine are in this room, to build a movement to take back the power that we deserve. And that means working with independent organisations that have been doing the work. That's why I think we should have dual membership, because before your party existed, people were doing the work in so many organisations, and it's not fair to tell them you have to leave that one and join this one. And I think that's about unifying the left and working together. Thank you.
Okay, can we just give another massive thank you for Zarah to giving her time this evening.